Hello, my name is Devnath Karnaratna. This presentation will be a reflection on my roleplay experience in week 5 when our task force was sent to confirm the possible problem of child labor in CT confectionery on behalf of Bilby Health Snacks Limited. This reflection aims to discuss my role in the simulation, justify the ethical perspective that I employed, reflect on the cultural context that influenced my decisions, and discuss what I have learned about myself and my future attitude to ethical dilemmas. So, here is the roleplay context. So, during the roleplay, I sat in the investigative team when talking to the executives of CT Confectionery. The primary question was whether Bilby ought to keep its partnership, change it, or stop it as there was child labor being reported. We were to collect information, pose pertinent questions, and make a recommendation. We also got to know that there were some children as young as 14 who were working, and they work averagely 7 hours. Education was mandatory up to grade 9, and whether these children were going to school was not clear. The management acknowledged that they lacked a clear labor, child labor law of conduct, code of conduct, and they were only half conscious about this problem. They were, however, willing to go through the audits provided that they would still continue to partner. Due to deontological approach, my decision making was very much influenced by the approach. In my case, child labor is wrong in itself and should not be considered an easy labor despite being socially accepted practice in some setting. Although I had emphasized with the economic stress that families go through, I thought that Bilby as a brand and socially responsible business needed a more decisive position. This is why I suggested that I would only proceed to partner with them on stringent terms. These were absence of children under 15, evidence of school attendance, parental control, adherence to the international labor standards, and frequent third party audits. This ensured that they were protecting the kids and at the same time they were acknowledging the economic reality of this local society. The implications of these recommendations to the stakeholders would be high. To kids and families, it would be safer. In the case of CT confectionery, a more stringent and audit and policy would result in cost but would enhance their credibility in the long term. To Bilby, it would serve the purpose of keeping the consumer trust intact and at the same time access the supply. The most important thing I learned in this role play were the understanding of cultural biases in me. As an international student where child labor is a criminal act and is considered as exploitation, I was initially very harsh on judging the situation. However, during the discussion, I understood that in certain societies, child labor on part-time basis is perceived as normal, even a necessity, to enable their families to survive. These differences can be pointed out by Hotspur dimensions of culture, particularly between individualist culture such as Australia and collectivist cultures where familial input is important. Being aware of this did not alter my attitude towards the issue of ethics, but it enabled me to be more empathetic in my approach. It taught me that being ethical in making business decisions does not mean to impose any one particular worldview, but rather than to keep cultural sensitivity and universal human rights on par. My experience resonated with a literature on ethics decision making models. The four component models of moral behavior describes the process by which moral behavior passes through awareness, judgment, intention, and action. I have observed that I experienced processes. I have initially acknowledged child labor as a problem, then I have condemned it as being wrong followed by the intention to defend children, and finally advising the tougher partnership terms. Trevino and Nelson 2021 suggest that individual values and organizational pressures influence an ethical decision. I experienced this tension during the role play since my personal values were pressured to defend children, whereas the group and business interests were pressured to also take into consideration financial and in cultural aspects. Out of this experience, I learned that I'm more likely to consider ethical values over short term profits. I learned that I'm ready to question the decisions in case I consider human rights are in danger. Simultaneously, I realized the necessity of listening. I heard the other opinion and enabled me to look at the bigger picture and form the more balanced recommendation. This made me feel confident about my capability. In my future career, this experience will have an impact on my approach to ethical dilemmas. Specifically, I plan to take time to think and arrive at decisions, encourage diversity, including multicultural employment, apply ethical theories to defend my arguments effectively before the team members and stakeholders. To sum up, the role play helped me to think critically regarding child labor, corporate responsibility, and cultural points of views. However, most importantly, it allowed me to realize how I can develop as a professional who makes integrity in decisions. These are the references which I got some information from. Thank you so much.